Hello and welcome to the Wheel of Crime podcast. This podcast is run by two ladies who play games, mumble profanities, and laugh way too often. Also, this podcast does cover topics of sensitive nature, and as such, listener discretion is advised.
Hello, and welcome back to the Wheel of Crime podcast. My name is Jen.
And my name is Emily. Yes, welcome. Another week has gone by, and we're here today to celebrate and listen to some crime. Woohoo!
Yes, you're here to listen to some crime. We are here to talk about some crime, and we've got crime on the docket today.
Oh, for sure.
Let me tell you.
Well, I'm also technically listening. I talk and I listen.
Yeah, that's
I do
true.
both jobs.
Emily's a multitasker, really.
I'm kind of super talented, but that's on the down low. But
yeah, and she's really low key about it and would never brag.
Yeah, I'm super modest. Not sure if we also covered that at some point, but but how was your last week, Jen? You got any fun stories to share from this past week rotation, the last 7 days?
Honestly, no. We're wrapping up on the TV show that I'm working on right now, and then I'm going to have a week off, and then I go on to my next show. So that's super fun. But actually, I'm doing something kind of fun on my week off, so I'm really looking forward to it.
So exciting. Well, that's already
Truly.
10 million times more exciting than what I've been doing, which is work. And then today I had milk with my cereal, which is a normal thing that people do. But I myself have not actually had milk, not almond milk in a long time. And it's made me very phlegmy. I don't think I like it.
Yeah, I honestly cannot remember the last time I had cow's milk.
Yeah, well, that was
It's been a long time.
Yeah, and then what happened was my Instacart person substituted my almond milk for cow's milk, I guess. And so it showed up and I was like, huh, what am I going to do with this? I don't know. So like I said, I had it with my cereal this morning, and I don't think I'll be doing that again. Not sure what I'm going to use the rest for, but it'll be an adventure.
Baking? Question mark?
Ooh, I have not baked anything in, for sure, 2 years.
Well, now's the time, Emily. Now's the time.
This is the universe speaking to me saying, learn how to make cookies. And I'm going to say, maybe.
But probably not.
I'll think about it, but more likely it'll sit in my fridge and go bad. But that's okay.
Woohoo!
Woo! And then, what else happened this week? So I got cow's milk by accident, and then, I have 3 pimples on my chin that are making me mad, is the other thing that happened this week.
Awesome. We love that for you.
I tell you, my life is so exciting. But no, for real, because it's in this really painful spot. I can't even explain it to you. It's where the bone of your chin is, and just every day it makes me mad. I don't know how to get rid of them, though.
Well, that's very unfortunate for you.
Yeah, so like we've discovered, we both had super interesting, cool, exciting weeks.
Amazing.
I'm so happy for us. Oh, and I sold my kitchen table. So that's the other exciting thing that I did.
Oh, sweet. How much did you get for it?
I actually got $500 for it.
Fuck yeah, dude.
Yeah. Well, because I sweetened the deal by including the chairs that went with it. And basically I was like, hey, you can either buy it for $500 and you get all these chairs for free, or it's $20 a chair and you pay for $400 for the table. And so I had a lady be like, I will take everything, and I said, deal. And that was cool too. I learned negotiating this week. So negotiations, milk, and chin pimples. That's my life.
Sounds like you're really living the dream, Em.
Always. But yeah, no, I'm good to spin the wheel of questions though, if you are. I have no idea what you're talking about this week, so I'm very curious.
Amazing. Spin away.
Number two.
If you could have one rich person hobby, what would it be?
A rich person hobby?
Yeah.
Ooh,
You know, me personally, I would like to learn how to fly a plane or go sailing. Like, that sounds kind of fucking cool.
my first thought was sailing or like a yacht or something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or the like fancy horse riding where the people wear those like super like skinny looking outfits and the giant helmets.
Only for the outfit, though, right?
Literally, I love those boots, but I cannot find a pair that fit over my giant calves. So that would be my first problem. Maybe that's why I don't have the
Custom
rich
made.
person hobbies. My calves are too big. Um,
Yeah, I just want to be a rich person so I can wear all the cool outfits. That's really my goal here.
literally though, it's like when you go like the whole sailing outfit, you know, you get your little like sweater and you tie it around your neck and you're like, look at me, I'm a cool girl, and you have like your little boating pants on. It's like a whole vibe.
Or like the cute little tennis outfit that you could wear. Oh,
Oh yeah, that's true too. I don't know. I don't. That's honestly all I can think. But when I think of like rich person hobby,
fair.
that's all I got. Spin for our next question.
Yeah. Spin away.
Number four.
How do you feel about parents who put their kids into like acting or modeling or singing or whatever so that they can be the breadwinners of the family?
See, because you said to be the breadwinners of the family, that actually changed my mind on what my answer was going to be. Because, like, on one hand, I don't mind it when people put their, like, kids into things, like, random, whatever it may be, because I know that everybody, it's kind of like trying to set themselves up for having a hobby, which I do think is healthy. But on the other end of things, if the intention is to put your child into modeling because you're like, wow, my child is cute, I won't ever have to work again, that is a different story. I do not like that. I do not think that people's children should be the breadwinners of the family. They need to be having other focuses, like being children and learning and other things.
Totally agree with you there. See, I feel like it's fine to put your kid into acting, modeling, whatever, if that's something they want to do. I feel like my problem with it comes when they're working. You know, when it's not a hobby, when it's a job.
Yes, exactly. Hobby, totally fine. Do whatever you want. If it's modeling, if it's singing, if it's acting, whatever. Hobby, totally. A literal job when you're like 15 or whatever, sliding into the territory of I don't think so.
Yeah. Not the vibe, not the vibe.
But on the other end, I still do think that if children, like say child actors for example, are working and it's not a hobby and this is something that they've like gotten into doing, that it's them themselves that should be making the money. I don't believe that families or parents should have access to it.
There is a lot of regulations nowadays for that, but I feel like there's still like the loophole of like the mom is the manager, so she's getting like
A cut,
that
a cut out
slice
of
of
it.
it. And I just feel like it shouldn't be kept in the family for kids because I feel like there's too many, like then there's a financial incentive if your kid wants to stop. Well, but now mom won't have a job anymore.
Yes. So that kind of stuff, like that makes me feel icky. I don't like that. And then also like there's the whole other thing too of how many times have we heard about child actors who get older and try to access their funds and it turns out their parents used all of their money that they got from working a job as a literal child to like buy a bunch of houses or other random bullshit, right? Like that shouldn't be happening either.
And yeah, it all rubs me the wrong way a bit.
Absolutely. So we're definitely on the same page for that. Should I spin for our next question?
Yes, spin again.
Number one.
This is a really random question. But imagine, I don't even know where my brain went when I thought this one up. But if you were working in a factory, which factory would you like to work in? Like,
A
do you want to make
factory?
clothes or like candles or like
Hmm.
auto parts?
I would not work in a clothing factory, and I would not work in any kind of food processing factory. I would not do any of those things. Um, I would work in, I don't know. I know immediately what I wouldn't want to do. That one was easy. I don't know about what I would want to do though. I would want something repetitious though, if I'm going to be honest. Like I wouldn't want um like something like that requires a lot of assembly, for example. Like I wouldn't want to work in a factory where
Um,
you literally assemble things. But like I've seen those ones though where it's like something like was rolling by on a conveyor belt and you just like need to like press a switch at the right time to like make the color happen or something. Like I feel like I could do that. That might be okay.
yeah, it's fair. I also would not want to work in a food or clothing factory. I would probably work, if I had to pick one, like board games or like some sort of toy, because I feel like that would
Oh,
be
okay.
pretty low key. I'm sure it's not. I actually know nothing about factories, so excuse my ignorance. But,
I literally
something.
the only thing I have in my head is like that stereotypical like thing that you literally see in movies and stuff where it's like a conveyor belt with like stuff on it and it's all the same stuff and you're like, yes, the factory. And people do things. I don't know what, but
Yeah. It's honestly, that's my exact picture in my head, so I think we're on the exact same page.
that's really funny. But yeah, no, I never even considered like a toy factory. That I think is kind of up the alley of what I was like talking about, where like you have like a one simple thing you have to check. And then also at the same time, if you're working in a toy factory, you kind of almost feel like Santa's elves, which I think adds like a little bit of like romance, je ne sais quoi to the job, which like is important.
Yeah, exactly. I would want to be like the quality control person, just being like, yes, this one is slightly off, so it goes over here, whereas this one is good to go.
Exactly, right? Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. That'd be cool. Let's spin for our last question.
If you had a dream of being like, let's say, a ballerina and your daughter like had like a vague interest in it, do you think you would try and push her towards that because you have similar interest? Or do you think, like, what would be your opinion on that?
Hmm. I think if I had a kid and that kid had the same interests that I do, or at least like the same, or like some idea of like what they wanted to be when they were older, I think I would like want them to be involved in something that they're interested in, but I don't think I would like necessarily push for it because I know that because I want something doesn't mean that everybody else does. And lots of people like the same kind of things that I do, but not all the same kinds of things that I do. So I don't know. I don't think I would like ever force something on them. But if they wanted to, I'd be like, yeah, sure, I'll assist you in the ways that you want to be assisted. And if you don't want to do it eventually, that is cool too.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. That's pretty much how I feel on it. Yeah, I don't like the idea of parents forcing stuff on their kids just because that's what they
Yeah.
wanted to do.
Well, and it feels like very projectionish, like it's almost like you're not seeing your child as being a separate human being, but rather an extension of yourself.
As if,
So the forcing of, you know, your offspring to do whatever you want because it fulfills some part in your psyche where it's like, oh, well, you and I are the same and you need to do these things because I want to do these things and whatever. Like, that just to me screams therapy. uh,
for sure.
right? Because it's really dancing to that territory of even like the other type of projection, which is like the more like abusive projection, where it's like you're assuming all these different things about your child because you think that way about yourself and stuff. Like, it's just a very like I think it's a type of like emotional abuse, I think, but I don't know if that's pushing
Yeah.
it too far because the projection is never an easy thing, but I do think it's really common.
Yeah. I think it definitely could go to emotional abuse. I wouldn't say necessarily it always does, but I would say that
Oh
it
yeah.
definitely could get to that level.
Yeah, because it's almost like it's like a tier thing. Like if we're talking about parents projecting onto their kids to accomplish things that they want to accomplish because they don't see their children's interests, like their own interests, as being real because it's not the same as what the parents have. I think that's pretty like low tier. But then the next step would be like, oh, I think these things about myself, so then my child needs to be punished for it. Like that's when you start like climbing a little closer into the bad side of it. But I would definitely say that this type of projection is probably like the starting point for a lot of people.
I would agree with you there,
Yeah.
but those are our questions. Do you know what we're going to talk about today?
All right. I think that today we are going to be talking about somebody who used to be a model or something, or his mother forced them to be like some kind of entertainer to because the mother wanted to do it and they didn't want to do it, and maybe they like kill their mother or something, and then they go to work in a factory making Barbies. That's what I'm making. That's what I'm gonna say.
You've got some of the elements there, but they're not quite in the right order.
Mm-mm-mm. Okay, so the Barbie making happened first, and then
Yeah.
and then they killed their mother, and then they became a model afterwards.
Well, not quite. But let's just get into the story today because we are talking about a really famous actress today actually.
Actress, today a famous actress.
Well, you'll have to find out. She definitely was a famous actress.
Can you give me like a hint? I kind of want to guess who it is. I don't know anything about celebrities, but I want to give it a shot.
Um she's of Russian descent.
Of Russian descent?
Yes.
Do you think I would know who this person is? Is actually a better question.
I think you've heard of them. I don't know if you could guess. I'm not sure.
Okay. I don't know Russian people. I have no idea.
Well, today we're going to talk about Natalie Wood.
Natalie Wood?
Yes, Natalie Wood. Have you ever heard of her?
Maybe? I thought you were going to say Natalie Portman, and I was like, oh, fuck off. No, I
No.
like nothing comes to mind. So I don't. If I do know this person, I probably wouldn't know until I saw like a picture or something. But the name does sound familiar.
All right. Well, we're gonna talk about her, so maybe it'll jog your memory. So
All right.
Natalie was born on July 20th, 1938 in San Francisco, California. She was the middle child and had two sisters named Olga and Svetlana. Shortly after Natalie was born in San Fran, her family moved to Santa Rosa. Her given name was Natalia Nikovenya Zakharov, and I am so sorry for my horrible pronunciation. And she was the daughter of Russian immigrant parents, Nicola and Maria. Natalie's father was born
Vladivostok.
into the poor family of Stefan Zakharov, a chocolate factory worker who joined the anti-Bolshevik civilian forces during the Russian Civil War. Her grandfather was killed in 1918 in a street fight between red and white Russian soldiers. After that, his family and her three sons fled to their relatives in Montreal, Quebec, and they later moved to San Francisco, where Nikolai worked as a day laborer and a carpenter. Natalie's mother, Maria, was born in
Barnaul.
which is in southern Siberia. Maria's father owned soap and candle factories as well as an estate outside of the city. With the start of the Civil War, his family left Russia, resettling as refugees in the Chinese city of Harbin. In 1925, Maria married Alexander Tatuoff in China, and she gave birth to their daughter Olga in 1928, before divorcing her first husband in 1936. Natalie liked to describe her family as having been either gypsies or land-owning aristocrats in Russia. In her youth, her mother had dreamed of becoming an actress or a ballet dancer. Natalie and her sisters were raised Russian Orthodox, and as an adult she stated, "I'm very Russian, you know." She spoke both English and Russian with an American accent. Natalie's family was not very well off financially when she was growing up, and therefore her mother had to kind of forgo her dreams of becoming an actress or a ballet dancer. And her mother, Maria, did, however, pass those ambitions on to her daughter, Natalie. Her mother would take the young Natalie to the cinema as often as she could, and Natalie later recalled this time saying, quote, "My mother used to tell me that the cameraman who pointed his lens out at the audience at the end of the Paramount newsreel was taking my picture. I'd pose and smile like he was going to make me famous or something. I believed everything my mother told me."
That's interesting.
'Tis. It makes me, like, not a ton is known about the, like, ins and outs of Natalie's relationship with her mom, but that quote just makes me feel like there was something more there. You know? Like,
Yeah, like it's almost like when you hear things and like they don't sound that weird out of context, but like you kind of just like when you're listening to it, you're like, that's kind of fishy. I don't know what part of it's fishy. I don't know what's the fishiest part, but it's fishy.
yeah, it just, like, rubs you the wrong way a little bit.
Interesting.
Yes. So Natalie's younger sister, Svetlana, was born in Santa Monica right after the move, and she now goes by Lana Wood, and she also became an actress. Natalie was noticed by members of a film crew during a shoot in downtown Santa Rosa, and a few weeks before her 5th birthday, Natalie made her debut in the 1943 film Happy Land. Despite the brief part, she attracted the notice of the director, Irving Pichel. He remained in contact with Natalie's family for 2 years, advising them when another role came up. The director telephoned Natalie's mother and asked her to bring her daughter to Los Angeles for a screen test. Natalie's mother became so excited that she, quote, packed the whole family off to Los Angeles to live. Her mother soon moved the family to LA in order to pursue a film career for her daughter, and after Natalie started acting as a child, David Lewis and William Goetz, studio execs at RKO Radio Pictures, changed her name officially to Natalie Wood in reference to director Sam Wood.
All right.
Yes.
Also, interesting choice, but okay.
Yeah, so Natalie's father opposed the idea, but his wife's overpowering ambition to make Natalie a star took priority. According to Natalie's younger sister Lana, the director Irving Pichel, quote-unquote, discovered her and wanted to adopt her, which I thought was really weird. And also really rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah, because it's also a weird insinuation if like for example, if like anybody I know who has a kid, like I would never be like, oh, I want to adopt them unless I'm also insinuating that I think that they need to be adopted. Or another weird part where it's like, well, why do you want them in the first place?
It's like, I don't know if this was the intent by that, obviously, but it feels like an ownership thing where he's like, well, I discovered her and I want to adopt her, like...
Oh, that's a good point, too. I didn't even think about that.
I don't know. I could just be...
reading into it wrong?
Reading into it wrong, but that's just... I don't know. It just rubs me the wrong way.
But it is a weird thing to say, so who knows? It could be anything.
Who knows? Who's to say?
Who's to say?
7-year-old Natalie got the part in Irving's 1946 film Tomorrow is Forever. She played a post-World War II German orphan opposite Orson Welles and Claudette Colbert. When Natalie was unable to cry on cue, her mother tore a butterfly to pieces in front of her to ensure she would sob for the scene. Yeah. That's a disturbing thing to do.
That was if I could guess what you were about to say, that was not on there. I did not think that was going to come up. You shredded a butterfly to make her cry. What? What are you
That would make
talking
me
about?
cry.
That would make me cry too. But like, as a grown woman, if I saw another grown woman be like, "You see this butterfly? It's gone forever," I would cry.
Like, girl, you need help. Like, that's not a normal thing to do.
You're a monster.
Like, Jesus, what did the butterfly do to you?
Wrong place, wrong time, I guess.
Yeah. So Orson Welles later said that Natalie was a born professional. Quote, so good. She was terrifying. And Natalie's career really took off from there. She did several more films as a child actor, appearing in over 20 films as a child. And her most well-known role as a kid, which you probably know, is the 1947 film Miracle on 34th Street.
Yep. I do know that one. That's interesting.
Every time a bell rings, an angel gets
Angel
its
gets
wings.
wings. Ding.
Oh, there's Natalie Wood.
Huh. All right. Weird. This is a weird story you've brought to the table today.
Yes, isn't it? Yes. So, Natalie was counted among the top child stars in Hollywood after the film and was so popular that Macy's invited her to appear in the store's annual Thanksgiving Day parade. Her mother, Maria, played a significant role in her daughter's early career, coaching her and micromanaging aspects of her career even after Natalie acquired agents. As a child actress, Natalie received significant media attention, and by age nine, she had been named the, quote, most exciting juvenile motion picture star of the year by Parents Magazine. Natalie successfully made the transition from child star to adult actress at age 16 when she co-starred with James Dean and Sal Mineo in the 1955 film Rebel Without a Cause. She later said it was the first script she read that she actually wanted to do as opposed to being told to do by her parents. She also said that her parents were opposed to her doing it. Quote, until then, I did what I was told, she said. Now, allegedly, when Natalie was 16 years old, she was raped by a very powerful actor. The knowledge of this rape wasn't made public until much later on, but the information came out in Susan Finstad's 2001 biography of Natalie. Susan did not name the person who committed the rape in her book. However, the rape was brought to light through the recollection of Natalie's close friends, which included actors Scott Marlowe and Dennis Hopper. Susan said this in her book, quote, through her 5 close friends' memories of some details or timing differ after 45 years, the essence of what each recalls Natalie confiding to them is the same. That the same married film star lured or tricked Natalie, raped her so brutally she was physically injured, and she was too frightened or intimidated to report it to the police. Natalie hated her former screen idol afterwards, shuddering if she heard his name. She would keep the horrible secret and behave as if nothing had happened whenever their paths intersected. Too schooled by her mother in the politics of Hollywood to cross a powerful movie star. I can see the anger on Emily's face.
See, I have lots of thoughts and opinions about this kind of stuff. First of all, dirty, dirty perverts. I don't care what their job is or what they do for a living or who they are. The fact that anybody can look at a child and do that, disgusting. And also, literally, just mental depravity. Like, I can't even begin to fathom the monstrosity or the monster within for anybody who thinks and acts like that. But I digress because we talk about that often. Secondly, the whole manipulation of power and what's the word I'm searching for? The power dynamics that people use to their advantage when it comes to assaults as well really fucking grinds my gears, dude. I can't even begin to get into it. But now I'm trying to think about who I could think it would be, because if it's a major male movie star who would have been married at the time, I haven't a fucking clue who it would be.
Well, we do find out. So
We find out it's not like a
we find out.
like a hypothesis, or not a hypothesis. It's not a an educated guess. We know for sure.
Well, I'll
We'll
just
get
tell
into
you.
it. Okay.
We'll get into it. So, interestingly, in July 2018, Natalie's younger sister, Lana, was on a podcast and said that her sister was raped as a teenager and that the attack had occurred inside the Chateau Marmont during an audition and went on for hours. According to Professor Cynthia Lucia, who studied the claim, Natalie's rape was brutal and violent. And in 2021, the year after the death of Kirk Douglas, Lana published her memoir called Little Sister, My Investigation into the Mysterious Death of Natalie Wood, spoiler, and identified Kirk Douglas as Natalie's alleged rapist. So the information, it's not confirmed by Natalie because, spoiler, she's dead. But it's coming from her younger sister, so I feel like the source, if anyone's gonna know, it's probably her.
The source is pretty reliable since it's somebody who would have known her during that time and is a family member. You're right. I'm just like on the run to Google right now to search up what this motherfucker looks like.
Yeah, he was a really famous star. He lived to 103 years old.
Oh my god. Well, he looks like a squash at 103, and his eyes are. He's going. I'm going to send this picture to you. I literally see this picture, and it's like, we can't believe he's 103, and his eyes are literally like pointing towards the center of his head.
Jesus. I mean, I think that's how we'd all look at 103, but.
I think I'd look worse almost at 103, but I don't know. This is pretty bad.
Oh, God.
But anyways, yeah, I recognize some of his headshots from, like, I think probably biographies and stuff, but, like, I'm trying to see, like,
he was in a lot of classic. He was in a lot of classic Hollywood films, so if you've seen them, you know, if you've seen any of them, you've probably come across him at some point.
Oh, yep. I have watched John Wayne movies, and here it says Kirk Douglas and John Wayne, and it's some photos of them in some of the films they did together.
There you go.
I literally saw his face, and I was like, I've seen that nose before. I need to find out what happened. Oh.
What happened? So, in her memoir, Lana wrote, quote, I remember that Natalie looked especially beautiful when Mom and I dropped her off that night at the Chateau Marmont entrance. Their mother, Maria, had reportedly scheduled Natalie's meeting with Kirk Douglas, hoping that, quote, many doors might have been thrown open for her with just a nod of his famous handsome head on her behalf. Lana, then about 8 years old, remembers, quote, it seemed like a long time passed before Natalie got back into the car and woke me up when she slammed the door shut. She wrote that Natalie looked awful, adding that she was very disheveled and very upset. And then she and Mom started urgently whispering to each other. I couldn't really hear them or make out what they were saying. Something bad had apparently happened to my sister, but whatever it was, I was apparently too young to be told about it. According to Lana, she and Natalie never discussed what happened until they were both adults. It was at that point that Natalie detailed her rape, telling her sister, quote, and, he hurt me, Lana. It was like an out-of-body experience. I was terrified. I was confused. According to Lana, her sister and mother had decided that it would tarnish Natalie's Hollywood standing to publicly accuse Kirk Douglas. Quote, suck it up were Maria's words of advice to her daughter, according to Lana. Kirk Douglas mentioned Natalie in his 1988 memoir, The Regman's Son, detailing the night, quote, a pretty little girl wearing a suede jacket hopped out of the car and ran to him. Quote, oh, Mr. Douglas, would you please sign my jacket? He recalled her saying. As I obliged the woman who was driving, got out and introduced her. This is my daughter. She's in movies too. Her name is Natalie Wood. This was the first time I met Natalie. I saw her many times after. Which, I don't like that he's bringing her up at all. Like, that's illegal. That should be illegal.
See, but it's weird anyways. it's weird anyways because it's like if I was to write a memoir about my life, okay? Like let's
Okay.
say that that's like a thing that we're doing now. You would only detail things of significance to you in your life, not necessarily coworkers. You know?
Or a random, like, because if you're a famous Hollywood star, you would meet a lot of celebrities, you know?
You would. But it's like
So,
it's so like who else did he mention? Probably people he actually was close to and not a teenager, a child. You know, like
a
what place does she
one-time
have?
chance encounter.
And exactly. Like what point, what purpose does it serve to mention her in your memoir unless you're literally rewriting what happened that day in your memoir? You know what I mean? Like you wouldn't bring
Fair
that up
enough.
unless there was like an intention behind it. So like what's the point in mentioning it? Either it has such significance to him that he felt he needed to say something, or he's rewriting the story.
Yeah. It all rubs me the wrong way, but so that happened when Natalie was 16. She graduated from Van Nuys High School in 1956, and she signed with Warner Brothers and was kept busy during the remainder of the decade in many girlfriend roles, which she found really unsatisfying. Her former childlike sweetness was now being combined with a noticeable restlessness that was characteristic of the youth of the 1950s. At age 19, Natalie got together with an actor named Robert Wagner, and the two married on December 28th, 1957, in Scottsdale, Arizona. She was the leading lady to Frank Sinatra in the 1958 film Kings Go Forth, then refused roles and was put on suspension by Warner Bros. That lasted for a year until February 1959, and she returned to be the leading lady to James Garner in the 1960 film Cash McCall. And after Natalie appeared in the 1960 box office flop All the Fine Young Cannibals, she lost momentum in her career and was in a transition period. So that transition period was really a turning point in her life as an actress and took place when she saw the film A Streetcar Named Desire. Quote, she was transformed and in awe of director Eli Kazan and of Vivian Lee's performance, who became a role model for Natalie. After a series of bad films, her career was already in decline, according to author Douglas Rathgib, and she was then cast in Eli Kazan's 1961 film Splendor in the Grass with Warren Beatty. Really famous film. She got a lot of accolades for it. And Elia Kazan later said that at the time, the sages of the film community declared her washed up as an actress, but he still wanted to interview her for his next film. He said, when I saw her, I detected behind the well-mannered young wife front a desperate twinkle in her eyes. I talked with her more quietly then and more personally. I wanted to find out what kind of human material was there, what her inner life was, and then she told me she was being psychoanalyzed. That did it. Poor R.J. Wagner, I said to myself. I liked Bob Wagner, I still do. So, despite that, he cast Natalie as the female lead in Splendor, and then her career really rebounded. He felt that despite her earlier innocent roles, that she had talent and maturity to go beyond them. In the film, Beatty's character was deprived of sexual love with Natalie's character, and as a result turns to another loser girl. Natalie's character could not handle the sexuality, and after a breakdown was committed to a mental institution. Ili Kazan said that he casts her in the role partly because he saw Natalie's personality, a true blue quality with a wanton side that is held down by social pressure, adding that she clings to things with her eyes, a quality he found especially appealing. Which I feel like the moral of this story is that people are constantly just taking advantage of Natalie at so many points.
and just constant sexualization, because it's literally, he starts with, I think she has like this like star quality and she's just so unique in how she presents herself, or whatever flamboyant garbage he came up with, and then sneakily hides in there that he finds her like alluring and attractive in how her eyes cling to things, and it's like, can you not just like what?
Sir, just leave her alone.
Like she's good. She probably like hot bitches know they're hot bitches. How about you like figure out something else that's like good about her, instead of constantly being like, look at all this sexiness. It's I can't. This is too much.
It's exhausting.
It's
So
exhausting.
on June 20th, 1961, Natalie and her husband Robert Wagner announced their separation in a joint press release, and then divorced 10 months later on April 27th, 1962. Following the divorce of her first marriage, Natalie dated Warren Beatty, Michael Caine, and David Niven Jr., and in 1965 she broke off an engagement with a Venezuelan shoe manufacturer named Ladis Blanknik. Blanknik. That was a really hard name to say for some reason.
That's a I've never heard of that one.
On May 30th, 1969, Natalie married British producer Richard Gregson after dating for nearly 3 years, and Natalie and Richard welcomed their first daughter, Natasha, on September 29th, 1970. However, her marriage to Richard was short-lived, and they filed for divorce on August 4th, 1971, and it was finalized on April 12th, 1972. After a quick romance with future California Governor Jerry Brown, Natalie resumed her relationship with her first husband, Robert Wagner, at the end of January 1972. They remarried on July 16th aboard the Ramblin' Rose, anchored off Paradise Cove in Malibu. Natalie then welcomed her second daughter, Courtney, on March 9th, 1974. Now, allegedly, Natalie had an affair with a former FBI agent named Donald G. Wilson from 1973 to 1977, and that began when she found out she was pregnant with her daughter Courtney. But it's never been confirmed. This man just says that it happened, so
Well, I don't
take that
trust
as you
men
will.
anyway, so whatever.
Yeah, we don't trust men, so take it how you want to. But
Well, especially when it comes to like illicit affairs, I feel like a lot of the times it's just people saying stuff. So whatever, I'm gonna take it with a grain of salt.
So, celebrity bodyguard Chris Hergoz stated that Natalie told his grandmother, an Avalon socialite, that she was going to divorce her husband, Robert, but those accounts are not officially confirmed either. So, basically, it seems from the outside that things are on the rocks with Natalie and Robert, you know?
Yeah, and if people are seeing that from the outside too, I can't imagine how things are actually on the inside.
So, after Thanksgiving 1981, Natalie and Robert began planning one of their frequent boat trips to Catalina Island off the coast of California. Natalie invited multiple friends to join them on the trip, but most of their friends declined, citing less than ideal sailing weather that weekend. At the time, Natalie was filming a movie called Brainstorm with her co-star Christopher Walken, who was in town for the film, but he wasn't from LA. So, being from out of town, he decided to accept the invite and join them on the trip. You know? Why not? I would love to go sailing, personally.
Yeah, why not?
So, despite the fact that they went boating frequently, it was a really well-known fact that Natalie couldn't swim. Like at all. So she can't swim. Just know this about her.
Odd hobby to pick up when you have more reason than everybody else to be afraid of the water.
Exactly. Like, she couldn't swim, so much so that during the filming of Brainstorm, there was supposed to be a scene in the water, which had to be canceled and cut out of the film completely because she couldn't swim and she was afraid of being in the water.
So weird. Not the being afraid of water part or not being able to swim, But the having a hobby of sailing when you can't swim, I can't get over that. That's really funny. I don't know.
It's definitely unique, you know. I'll give her that. Me
It's like saying
personally,
it's like saying I'm afraid of scorpions. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go camp in the desert without a tent for fun. What?
just to see what happens. Yeah.
Just to see what happens.
Not her best move, maybe. I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
Um, who's to say?
Who's to say?
So on November 28th, 1981, that morning, 43-year-old Natalie allegedly saw her bodyguard, Chris Herzog, before heading out on a weekend getaway with her husband. So Natalie, Robert, Christopher Walken, and the ship's captain, Dennis Davern, set a sail on board Robert's 58-foot motor yacht called the Splendor. The group enjoyed a champagne-filled dinner at the restaurant Doug's Harbor Reef in Catalina before reboarding the yacht for the evening. Don Whitting, the night manager of the restaurant, later said that he was worried that all four were too intoxicated to make it back to the boat safely in their dinghy after the meal, and even went so far as to ask Kurt Craig of the Harbor Patrol to make sure the group made it safely back to their yacht when they left the restaurant at 10:30 p.m. So, just remember, Natalie can't swim. The weather is so shitty that a bunch of their friends didn't want to come on this trip, and they're all extremely drunk, including the boat's captain.
What year is this? This is the 70s, right?
1981.
These fucking people. I can't. This is too much. The boat captain. I know one of you people don't know how to swim, and it's looking a little rocky out there. But we're gonna have a good time.
Yes. So
just throw me away. I can't keep doing this. I can only imagine what happens next.
you probably can't. So Robert said that. So remember also, people think that Robert and Natalie are like their relationship is on the rocks. So I'm sure this is a super fun trip to be on.
Oh, absolutely. And I can only imagine at some point somebody is sitting there and they're like, this weather and this situation is very metaphorical for this relationship for some reason. Can't imagine why.
Like, there's nothing worse than hanging out with a couple who's in an argument and you're just sitting there vibing. Like, oh, I would rather be
just
anywhere
an argument,
else.
but like actively fighting with each other. Like, oh, please just set me free. I could no.
I would
that
want
is
to be
hell
there.
on earth.
Wouldn't
No.
want to be there. So Robert said that he had a heated conversation with Christopher Walken, allegedly about Natalie's career after dinner. And during this conversation, Natalie was not present, but everyone thought she was safe on board. She was back on the boat. She was fine, you know? So around 11:05 p.m., the other passengers realized that Natalie had actually gone missing and began to look for her. Around this time, they realized that the boat's dinghy was also gone. At 1:30 a.m., a ship-to-shore call was made, and about 2 hours later, at 3:30 a.m., the Coast Guard was finally called. And just let that sink in a little. They waited nearly 4 hours to call for help when the waters are super rough and stormy, and this woman can't fucking swim. And she's drunk.
Yeah, she's drunk in a dinghy probably. Can't swim. It's stormy outside. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So just let that sink in a little. They waited 4
Sinking
hours
probably
to call
like the
for
dinghy?
help. Yeah. So
Okay.
Roger Smith, the LA County rescue boat captain, said that he did not receive a call to look for her until after 5 a.m. So no one even started looking for her. She went missing around 11 p.m. and they didn't start looking until 5 a.m.
I do have thoughts about that. But also, it's so weird to me when this kind of stuff happens where it's like so-and-so went missing you guys are on a boat when it's stormy outside and nobody thought to call anybody. But then, like, it's always like a weird thing where they're like, oh, well, she disappears all the time, or like other things. But this happens so often where it's like stupid long amounts of time before people actually look for somebody who's gone missing under mysterious circumstances. Why is that?
I guess we'll find out shortly.
Okay.
So, at around 8 a.m. on November 29th, authorities recovered her body about a mile south of the couple's yacht, off an isolated cove known as Blue Cavern Point. The small inflatable dinghy was found beached nearby, and Robert said that she was not with him when he went to bed. The autopsy report revealed that she had bruises on her body and arms, as well as an abrasion on her left cheek, but no indication as to how or when the injuries occurred. So Captain Dennis stated that Natalie and Robert argued that evening, which Robert denied at the time. He was like, absolutely not, did not happen. And he later backtracked that and said that he did in fact get into an argument with Natalie before she died, but it's not 100% confirmed what that argument was about. So the autopsy found that Natalie's blood alcohol content was 0.14% and that there were traces of motion sickness pill and painkiller in her bloodstream, both of which increased the effects of alcohol. LA County Coroner Thomas Nogoshi ruled the cause of her death to be accidental drowning and hypothermia. According to the coroner, Natalie had been drinking and she may have slipped while trying to reboard the dinghy. Coroner Thomas's intern at the time claimed that he told Thomas that the bruises were substantial and fitting for someone being thrown out of a boat, but it seems as though Thomas wasn't interested in looking further into those observations being made by his intern, and he was like, nope, it was accidental.
Mm-hmm.
So Robert and Christopher Walken had been interviewed by authorities for less than 10 minutes in the immediate aftermath of her death, and a witness statement appeared to have been dismissed by investigators. So the nearby boats also sailing that night, they were just like, nah, we don't need to talk to any of them. It's fine. Who cares what they have to say, you know?
Let's just take all the logical things and just not do any of them.
Exactly. You know? People said that there was yelling coming from the boat, but it was probably nothing.
Probably just the wind, and they're screaming because they're just having so much fun on this nice rocky ocean full of alcohol.
Exactly. Can't swim. It's fine. So her sister Lana expressed doubts, alleging that Natalie could not swim and had been terrified of water all her life, and that she would have never left the yacht by her own on dinghy. Two witnesses who were on a nearby boat stated that they had heard a woman scream for help during the night. 5 years after Natalie's death, Christopher Walken told People magazine, quote, "I don't know what happened. She slipped and fell into the water. I was in bed then. It was a terrible thing." The case was actually reopened on November 2011 after the boat captain, Dennis, publicly stated that he had lied to police during the initial investigation, and that Natalie and Robert did have that argument that evening, and he alleged that Natalie had been flirting with her Brainstorm co-star, Christopher Walken, which made Robert jealous and enraged. Dennis also claimed that Robert prevented him from turning on the searchlights and notifying authorities after Natalie's disappearance. Dennis alleged that Robert was responsible for her death. He said, quote, "Over the years, I had put two and two together, and when I see a man standing on the back of his boat with the door open and him telling me that Natalie was missing, he's standing there where you would actually exit the boat. I mean, to me, it's obvious that he was the last one with her," Dennis said. So, very sus.
Literally, this has been sus from the beginning. They're like, weird bruises on the body, but that's mysterious. we don't know what that is.
Who's to say? So, when the case was reopened, Christopher Walken hired a lawyer, cooperated with the investigation, and was not considered a suspect by authorities. However, according to Natalie's sister Lana, he, quote, he did tell them everything he witnessed and he knows. However, he made them promise that they would never reveal anything that he has said. So that's a very weird request, in my opinion, and therefore nobody knows what he actually told them about that night because it's all completely confidential.
So that's what Christopher Walken said?
So basically, when the case was reopened, Christopher Walken talked to police and told them everything he knew about that night under the condition that they would never publicly say what he said. So even Lana, her sister, doesn't know what he said about that night. No one knows.
See, what this tells me though, like making that type of request, is that he feels partially responsible for what happened that night. And there may be like another thing where cuz is like the man of the situation still like alive or something, or at the time was he still alive?
Robert was still alive at this time.
Okay, and then it might be a thing where he's trying to like um make it so that he thinks, like a mental thing where like he's like, oh, I don't want him thinking that I'm against him. I want him to think that I'm with him, but I know things I'm not supposed to know, so I'm going to tell the police, but I don't want them seeing anything because I want to maintain my relationship with this person. Like
Yeah.
maybe something like that too, but that's kind of what it says to me, but I guess we will never know.
Yeah. In 2012, LA County Chief Coroner Lakshman amended Natalie's death certificate and changed the cause of death from accidental drowning to drowning and other undetermined factors. In the 2013 report, coroner's investigation noted that nail clippings were not taken from Natalie's body to determine whether she had made scratch marks, and the dinghy was no longer available to be examined. The coroner thinks Natalie died soon after entering the water, and the amended document included a statement that is, quote, not clearly established how Natalie ended up in the water. Detectives instructed the coroner's office not to discuss or comment on the case. On January 14th, 2013, LA County Coroner's Office offered a 10-page amendment to Natalie's autopsy report. And the amendment stated that Natalie might have sustained some of the bruises on her body before she went into the water, but this could not be definitively determined. Forensic pathologist Michael Hunter speculated that Natalie was particularly susceptible to bruising because she had taken the drug Synthroid. In February 2018, Robert was officially named a person of interest by the police in the investigation. The police stated that they know Robert was the last person to be with Natalie before she disappeared. In a 2018 report, the LA Times cited the coroner's report from 2013 saying that Natalie had unexplained fresh bruising on her right forearm, left wrist, and right knee, a scratch on her neck, and a superficial scrape on her forehead. Officials said that it is possible she was assaulted before she drowned. Robert's attorney, Blair Burke, said in 2013 that Robert had nothing to do with the death. Quote, after 30 years, neither Robert nor his daughters have any new information to add to the latest investigation. She blamed publicity seekers for trying to exploit the case. So, no charges were ever filed, and the department has said it's not sure whether a crime has occurred or not.
Well, I am telling you, as an entirely unrelated party, that she 100% died under suspicious circumstances at the least. So I would say a crime was for sure committed against this poor woman. Actually, her whole life. There was many crimes committed against her. But that was also a crime, for sure.
Yeah, I feel so bad. And one of the parts of this that really grinds my gear is Robert's attorney being like, oh, there's nothing to this. This is just publicity seekers trying to exploit her in this case, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, I feel like there is something at least sus about this, and so people have the right to look into it, you know?
Oh yeah. Well, and it's like too like by saying that about a woman who is dead under, like I said, clearly suspicious circumstances, like you're just shitting on her again, as everybody else has shat on her whole life, but now you're shitting on her again, and she's dead. Like, you know? But yeah, I don't know, man. Like, for my thing though, honestly, is the fact that people can sit there and be like, yeah, this woman who has a debilitating fear of the ocean and water in general climbed into a dinghy, bruised herself up somehow, and then drowned and washed up on the shore. Like, you're not going to convince me that that's what happened.
So I meant to include this, but I forgot. But Christopher Walken, I believe, at some point said what he thought happened was the dinghy had washed up onto the deck of the boat, and she was walking by and was trying to like reattach it to the side of the boat, and because the boat was so rocky that she slipped and fell in with the dinghy.
But also,
That was the theory.
I do not believe Christopher Walken for a second. If that's his like running theory, because like you don't say that kind of bullshit unless you're trying to explain something away that you know probably didn't happen.
And also, like, he said that he was asleep at the time that she was dead, but there's some debate about that, about whether he was up or like what was happening. There's just a lot of debate about the timeline of the night because it doesn't add up, and it doesn't make sense for her to get into the water of her own free will, and the like accidental slipping thing is just kind of reaching also, so people are like, what actually happened, you know?
Yeah, I do think though that half of what Christopher Walken's statements mean, like if I was to pretend like armchair psychologist try to psychoanalyze this, I do think that he is like I think a part of his secrecy has like to do with protecting himself. Either protecting himself or he's really good friends with this guy and he's trying to protect him too. Or like maybe he instigated an argument between the two of them and this is kind of what came out of it and he feels responsible that way. But it's just so weird to me that you would sit there and you'd come up with a million different reasons on what happened, very clearly know more than what you're letting on, and then still not talk about it, unless you in some way feel responsible.
I honestly think it's the latter. I think that him and Natalie were like, if I was gonna totally just guess what I think happened,
Yeah.
I think him and Natalie were flirting on this trip because her and Robert were
We're
on the
outs.
rocks. Robert saw them flirting, got jealous. That's why him and Christopher had that heated discussion outside the restaurant. They all fought, and at some point, Robert pushed her off the boat. That's what my conspiracy theory is.
I think you're right. And
totally not a fact, but that's my theory.
No, I'm with you though. Like if you were to add it up all together, that would be my theory as well. The only thing I would add in is maybe even like when Christopher was sleeping, maybe he overheard them arguing or something and maybe feels a sense of guilt because he didn't get up and do something about it. And then when the arguing stopped, he's like, "Oh, no, they're good. They're fine." And then it obviously wasn't, right? Like that would be the only thing I would add in because that's why to me it would make more sense because he's not just covering like the whole start to the story. He's also covering the in-between part where he's like, no, I was asleep. I don't know anything. Like, it's still a cover. So it's like, well, why would you cover that unless you feel a sense of guilt? So that would be the only thing I would add in is that he probably was more attentive and more involved in that kind of way than what we think, but probably a sense of guilt and maybe doesn't want to get in trouble.
Yeah, well, Robert also said that he was sleeping when Natalie, quote unquote, disappeared or whatever. So I feel like there could be something where like they were having the argument and then she got pushed and they were both there to witness it. Or what you said, where he heard the argument, didn't do anything. There's something there for sure, I think.
Yeah. Well, and then that's the thing too is like, okay, so if she got pushed off the boat, why did the dinghy go there? Maybe it's even something as simple as, she was pushed off the boat. They tried looking for her. They couldn't see a way to get her out, and they're like, well, what do we do? Oh, well, send the dinghy down. She can grab onto the dinghy. And then they do that.
Or, yeah, or the dinghy was thrown out as a cover to like
Yep.
be like, oh, she slipped.
Yep. I kind of think that too. Because then it's also a weird thing to be constantly bringing in the dinghy into this because the other thing too, it's like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't like it though. And I am mad suspicious. And I do think it is a crime. Fuck that bitch who said it wasn't a crime. I believe it's a crime.
Yes, but that's the end of our episode today. This is a story that I've wanted to cover for a long time, so I'm glad that I finally got around to it, and I hope you all enjoyed it.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, that is the end of today's episode. If you really enjoyed us, you can give us a 5-star review on wherever you listen to podcasts. That would be greatly appreciated. As well, if you'd like to send us an email and just say whatever you like, our email is wheelofcrime@gmail.com. We have a website that you can check us out on, which is www.wheelofcrime.com. We have a Patreon, which is @wheelofcrime on Patreon if you'd like to donate to the show. We have our social media, which is Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, all @Wheel of Crime. If you want to look us up on there. And lastly, we do still have a Google document up on our socials, as I've been saying for the last few weeks. If you'd like to submit a story there, we would like to do more themed episodes in the future. And if you have anything you'd like us to talk about or to read on the show, submit it, and we'll build an episode. It'll be really good and fun.
Yes, and that's it. That's all. We'll see you next week for another new episode. Okay, bye.
Bye.